All right, adding on to the series, y'all. Don't know how many parts or addendums or segments we're gonna make of this, but I'm having so much fun, and I'm appreciating y'all feedback, and I'm glad y'all learning as I am as well all the daggum time. But this here is part 4, knockout. The 5 elements to maximizing knockout power. All right, element number 1. Circular punches are the most powerful. Should have put that in quotes. Quote, circular punches are the most powerful, end quote. All right. Now, published in the Journal of Neurosurgery in 2005. Now, I know that's a little outdated, but we're going to use it as our measuring stick today.
Hit me right here.
The article and study measured the impact force of 4 punches. All right, here are the 4 punches that this article and study measured. Hook to the temple, the straight or the cross to the forehead, straight or across to the jaw, and finally the uppercut to the jaw. The results showed that the hook to the temple was calculated, and from the data collected, the hook to the temple was the most powerful punch. It resulted in the highest acceleration of the head. Now, surprisingly, the uppercut scored as the weakest punch, according to the data collected by this neuro study. The uppercut scored as the weakest punch. Now, I'm going to be honest, I'm a little skeptical about this, but as a man with sense, I can't argue with tested facts. Granted, it is a little outdated, 2005, but I can't argue with facts, and unless I conduct my own study, blah, blah, blah. Side note, the hook and the uppercut motion are the most natural and most conducive movements for the human arm. They're the most natural and most conducive movements for your labrum, for your rotator cuff, for your shoulder, etc. So softball players naturally have longer longevity because they throw underhand, and the underhand is the uppercut. Those movements have lesser wear and tear on the arm and shoulder. But baseball players throw overhand. All right, and I don't know if you'll notice, but throwing overhand has way more wear and tear on your shoulder and your labrum and all that good stuff, and your tendons in your shoulder, than it does going underhand, like throwing uppercut, or going sidearm, like with a hook. But even though sidearm is kind of dangerous because of all the force, but a hook, your elbow's more bent. Anyway, now to offset that, a woman's body naturally isn't as muscular or as durable as a man's body, a male's body, because nature deemed it so. So naturally, keyword naturally, men are able to bear heavier loads and acquire muscle mass to be powerful like the Hulk, to be an immense force in the universe physically now. All right. So before I receive any disdain, women are powerful as well too, just nowhere near as powerful as a man physically. But yeah, so male and female pitchers, underhand, overhand, usually last just as long, but males usually longer because of the things I just stated. Anywho, furthermore, the most common KO punches in MMA and boxing are usually the result of circular punches. Okay? Now, along with this survey in 2005, this neuro study, the most common KO punches in MMA were circular punches via hooks and overhands. Hooks, like you're throwing some nunchucks, like you're circling your body, twerking your hips, and overhand. You're stepping in, you're tucking your hair, and you're throwing that, you're throwing that Willie Mays pitch from center field. You're throwing that Greg Maddux off the mound, that Overhands. All right. And then the third punch, strongest punch for MMA was the straight or the cross. You got to pardon me off. I sound a little slow. Been a long day and a long night, but we're going to get it done. Get her done. All right. Now, the second element of maximizing your KO power is punch through your opponent's head. You want to punch through your opponent's face. You want to punch through their chest. You want to punch through their skull. And from my experience, it's more of a visualization technique than it is actually doing it, even though you can actually do that. You know, I guess if you go cool or you know, if someone's face caves in. But I mean you can snap someone's head back and really punch through, but really it's intent for you to mentally visualize that and to pinpoint their head, you know, back behind where it actually is. And like Bruce Lee and Tyson and other great combative artists, this is a technique to get you to punch through your opponent and not at them. Okay? So you don't punch or strike your opponent. The technique is that you punch and strike through them, as if you have a wet paper bag and you're whoosh, punching through it, or some wood blocks and you're punching through it. You're not trying to punch at them. You're not trying to pity pat. You're striving, and you will be punching through them with this technique. So you imagine that their head is on the turnbuckle. For example, if their back is towards the turnbuckle where their corner is, and they're 10 feet away and y'all both in the center, but their back is toward, you imagine that their head is on the turnbuckle. All right? You imagine and visualize that. And then you punch to that turnbuckle instead of right there where their body is. If they're standing in front of you, y'all moving and stuff, you imagine that their head is 6 inches behind where it actually is. And that will force you to punch all the way through them. Okay, it'll force you to torque your hips. It'll force you to turn and use all your power from the ground up. It will force you to use more power. It will force you to use more technique. And then in turn, really, it just causes more damage and it causes more KOs. All right. So the main focus is not trying to bring your fist back to your guard as fast as you can, even though that is good technique. But with KOs, you're punching through your opponent. All right. You're punching through them. And if you connect, even if they block, it's still going to hurt a lot of times. Punching through is similar to a follow through with a golf swing, or swinging a bat and following through with your hips. You know, in baseball, you follow through with your hips. Wow. Ken Griffey, Barry Bonds, other great hitters. You follow through with your hips to get it over the fence. You follow through with your hips and you direct your hips to pull a ball. If anybody know about baseball, good, precise batters can pull a ball to left field or push or pull a ball to right field based on their technique and their hips. All right. Now back to this guard thing. Pulling back to guard is excellent for defense, but for technique and for countering, it won't help you knock someone out, because scientifically you decelerate too early. You pull someone's steam off of the blow, and that lowers the chance of a KO strike. All right, because a lot of professionals, we've seen it. We watch fights, and and to my dismay, I've been upset, but in a lot of times, I've been happy. These professionals have rock hard heads, man. They have iron jaws. They have strong wills. And a lot of them just ain't going down without a fight. A lot of them are naturally that tough and that high up on the level, and a lot of them are juiced up. But anyway, just punch through your opponent. That was the element number 2. Punch through your opponent. Element number 3. Summation of forces, or what they call SOF. Element number 3. Summation of forces. SOF. Just punching with your arm like how a lot of people's jabs are, is always going to be less powerful than punching with your whole body. So instead of arm punching or slapping or, you know, being limp with your jabs, with your touch, with your feints, when you're throwing power punches, because these are the keys and the elements to increasing your KO power, you want to rotate all the way through, rotating the body and the core. You want to rotate it, your body and your core through, as if you're throwing a hook. What's a better example? As if you ever rowed a boat, if you ever been in a boat rowing, if you ever churned butter, it's similar to turning your hips and throwing your hips always, rotating your hips all the way through, similar to swinging an axe, or if you've done track and field, throwing the hammer or the javelin. Hell, even throwing a long ball. If you play football, you throw a deep pass, a Hail Mary. Look at the hip and shoulder motions. You know, you got to turn and be in sync with your body. If you again, Willie Mays. What's my man that was from Atlanta Braves, man? The Caraco Kid back in the 90s. Well, if you're my man in the center field, you got to turn your hips. You know what I'm saying? They trying to run around third. You got to throw them jokers out. Ha ha. Use your hips. But again, summation of forces. When you walk forward, you are directing your force and your hips forward. When you squat down and then you explode up into the air using plyometrics to touch the sky, you're directing your hips and your power upward. But to use summation of forces, y'all, it all happens, well, not all, but majority of it happens at your hips and core. All right, not the ankle and knees, even though it has some of what to do with it, but majority comes from the ankle. Majority comes from the hips and core. So generating extra power for your punch comes through your hips and core. This is the key to the summation of forces for maximum punch and kick velocity. Yet and still, you still got to be grounded for balance to be able to easier manipulate your hips and your core muscles. Okay?
Represent us color folks.
So you're not only starting or generating force from the ground, because everything's ground up. You're generating force from the ground, your feet to your knees, to your thighs. You're not only generating, starting it there, but you're continuing it and adding force to it. You're adding oomph to it as it comes up through your hips and your core, up through your chest, then to your arms, then to your follow through. You know what I'm saying? All this starts from your feet, but we're saying that the summation of force, your hips has a lot to do with it, because we've all known people that have good footwork, but then again, they have weak hips and they're able to get into position, but they're not able to stun or knock anybody out. But we know people with terrible footwork, but who have powerful hips, and they can sit a mother flusher down. So if you're good on both ends, then shoot, that's that fire, that's that double whammy. And to add on to that, coming from the feet to the hips to the arms, it's a chain reaction of nerves, y'all. Okay, again, we're dealing with physics, physiology, science, fight science. You pivot your foot when you throw a cross or straight, or a hook. And to avoid torquing your knee or twisting your ankle, it helps when you rotate through a large range of motion at the hips and your core. You're rotating through, y'all. That's why we call it the big dance. That's why we call it getting busy. You got to have motor skills, hand and body coordination. You got to have fluidity. All right. And when you rotate through your hips and your knee, you're turning, you're pivoting, this lessens the chance of injury. And it puts you in position to throw a follow-up combo or chain of punches as well too. And it puts you in position to dodge and get the hell out of the way when you're turning your feet are in position. You're already set. You threw your power punch. Now you can duck and hop back and do whatever you need to do. All right? Because we always hear about fighters throwing their arms, their shoulders out of socket, twisting their knees, twisting their ankles, etc. So obviously those fighters need to become more fluid or get better footwork or get better technique, and the list goes on. Now, y'all, the key to number 3, the number 3 element, the summation of forces, also is timing. You got to start with the placement of your feet and legs. All right? That's all footwork. Placement of your feet. You're moving, you're feeling the rhythm. Then the rotation at your core and hip. Then your shoulder, and the filing ends through your fist. All right, so practice this, y'all. Shadow box, hit the heavy bag, go to the batting cage, do some rowing, make love with beautiful women. You know what I'm saying? And if you're a female, please make only engage in coitus with worthy men. But anyway, get your hips in sync and get your coordination right, baby. Now the next element to maximize your power. Element number 4, the stretch shortening cycle, aka SSC.
You out, sucker.
Now naturally, the SSC, or the stretch shortening cycle, naturally this occurs in combination punches, because the rotation of one punch winds you up. It's almost like a continuation of force, or like a momentum. One punch winds you up for the next punch. You know, you're throwing and it winds you up for the next punch. This has a lot to do with instinct. It also has a lot to do with muscle memory. But really, it's just chain movement. It's just the natural movements of the body. So the more you practice certain combos, the more you practice combo counters or rolling punches, the easier it will be for you to just shoot them out in your actual contest. How they say 1 or 2 punches may hurt or even KO your opponent if you're skilled in the art of the KO, but 3 or 4 or 5 plush blows will definitely put your opponent down. All right, finally, the 5th and final element to maximizing your power and KO striking, to maximize your knockout abilities. Being relaxed as possible.
Hey, you out, sucker.
Being tense makes it harder for you to get a knockout. Like how they tell runners, never clench your fists. You know, if you're running track, never clench your fists. Do not be tense. Always be relaxed and steady. So it increases your fluidity. So it increases your ease of running. How the saying goes, the tighter you squeeze a handful of sand, the more of the sand comes out of your hand. So the tighter you squeeze sand, the more of it comes out when you're trying to grip it tight. So relaxation is the key. All right. And it's a key element to letting power and force flow through you easier. Letting it flow through your body and work with your body easier. We've heard The Rock, you know that, Dwayne Johnson. We've heard Bruce Lee in his books and philosophy. We've heard Ali and many other great combatants speak about being relaxed all the way up to the point of impact. That means your whole body's chill, you relax, you're alert and you're focused, but your body's relaxed. You're not tense, you're not gritting your teeth, you're not, squeezing, you know what I'm saying, your sphincter muscles or nothing. You're relaxed all the way up until the point of impact. Okay, so when your fist or your body is always clenched, y'all, or always tight, it tenses and it stresses the muscles. It tenses up and it hinders power. It hinders the flow of energy when your fists are always clenched, or your jaw or your shoulders are always tight. That's how you get knots and shit in your muscles in your body. But it tenses you up, and it hinders your flow of energy and power when you're tense. All right. So the key, the element here is to be relaxed, to be fluid. And right before the climax of impact, right before the moment of impact, then at that split second, at that nanosecond, then you harden your fist. Then you clench your jaw. Then you squeeze your core, your hips, or crunch it. Y'all get what I'm saying? You know, gritting your teeth and all that. Then that's when you follow through, you know, right at the last nanosecond of impact. Then that's when you tense up, follow through, grit your teeth, all that good stuff. It's similar to a crashing wave. You know, it's fluid, back and forth, it's flowing. Then boom, shakalaka, leaving you laid out like you just been washed up on the shore, you know, like a starfish, a beach whale, a sand dollar, jellyfish, etc. A little bit into the science. If you're tense, it decreases your potential velocity, y'all, in two ways. Number one, you can't stretch the muscle to use the SSC, or the shortening strength cycle, because it's almost impossible to stretch a muscle when it's contracted. All right, we already know that. But true mastery, y'all, not just with punching, but with most athletic activities, it's required of you to learn how to maximize using and firing off the muscles that you need to do a job, while also relaxing the opposing muscles. Okay, so for example, you have your bicep. Let's say you curling. When you're lifting it, that's the muscle that's firing off. But the opposing muscle, the muscle that's trying to relax the bicep, is the tricep. It's right on the opposite side of the bone. Can't remember the name of the bone, that bone in the arm. But the tricep, but as you're retracting, you know, then your tricep comes into play into helping you bring that weight down safely, so you don't drop it on your toes, or so you don't disconnect your bicep, etc. All right. So really, this is where deep stretching, to be able to control the muscles that are firing and the opposing muscles, the muscles that are controlling retraction and contraction, on the opposite side of your muscles that are actually working. This is where yoga and deep stretching and water workouts come into play. Okay, so to generate maximum velocity, use all these keys thus far, and you'll soon be knocking mofos out. You know, you'll be knocking and tearing holes in your punching bag. You'll be punching and chopping through wood, through bricks, etc., etc. So someone who's not relaxed as a combative artist, as a fighter, they're either a square, a beginner, or if they continue to be stiff and all rigid, then they're not going to be a good fighter, and you probably need to get their ass out of there before they get hurt. All right. So just a few examples of fighters who are relaxed. This is still number 5, y'all. The fifth key element. You look at Anderson Silva, Elton Anderson, the Spider Silva. He's always super relaxed when he's knocking dudes out. Like how he did, Yushin Okami. And Rich Franklin, he was just so relaxed. He just clenched his head in that Muay Thai and just beat him to the face. Like how he did Forrest Griffin. I thought the shit was fixed, to how relaxed he looked against Forrest Griffin. I mean, oh man, it's just legendary. Just legendary. Who else is super relaxed? Muhammad Ali. You know, the Phantom Punch. You know, it's almost like he's stepping back and he's just throwing a counter, super relaxed. But that speculation there too. But he was super relaxed. You know, Ali dancing, moving, grooving. Sugar Ray Robinson, the legendary legend. Sugar Ray Robinson is famed to knock dudes out as a welterweight while going backwards. How relaxed do you have to be to do that? All right, y'all, so a quick recap. The 5 elements to maximizing your knockout power. Element number 1, circular punches. Circular punches are, data-wise, the most powerful, as of a neurosurgery article in a journal in 2005. So, you know, y'all keep growing and studying your arts. and make it better or whatever. Element number 2, punch through your opponent's head. Punch through your opponent. Element number 3, summation of force. Okay. Element number 4, use the stretch shortening cycle, aka SSC. The final element again, element number 5, be as relaxed as possible. Thank y'all for tuning in. We love y'all. We're going to add on more to this series. We're going to get some special guests. We're going to keep doing our research. Tell us what you think. And y'all stay in shape, man. Alright? Practice your art. Study your arts. Get in depth. Get in tune. We love bossing.